prepare for the first of the year. And I guess I want to share with you a couple of those things that we've been working on. One is we just want to keep you informed about the new legislation. That's the purpose of this little webinar, and it's the purpose of future communications. I know that there will be a few more communications from Schwab, and it's my expectation that we'll have one primary communication for those who couldn't participate today to keep them up to date on the new legislation, and it'll kind of explain everything as well. We have been going through a process to ensure that that Schwab is accounting for the cost basis using the methodology that we're going to propose and suggest that people use, which is that high-cost methodology. So we're looking at Schwab's accounting systems and make sure that they're set up correctly. We've also undergone a process where we've cross-referenced every stock position, every mutual fund position, and every single tax lot to see where are there differences. Where are there differences in what Schwab is carrying versus what we're carrying? And we're working through a process of reconciling those differences. And some of that, and the biggest culprit is there's no cost basis data at all. So we've been beginning a process of contacting people where we have inaccurate data or we just don't have any data at all, and the cost basis is empty. It just says 0. So we're in a process of contacting people to get updated information. We've also been evaluating the different sources of additional information. So we're looking at online access to give people the ability to look at their cost basis online if you have access to your accounts through Schwab. A monthly statement, looking at maybe introducing a statement that carries cost basis information. And lastly, looking at year-end reporting. We're not certain exactly what of these methods we'll use. It'll probably be a combination of them, but we're in the process of evaluating that information that's available at the present time. And lastly, we want to be not only available to you, but we want to be available to your accountant or the person that does your taxes to help them navigate the cost basis legislation. Because this is important, because if you're calculating it a different way or you're using a different tax lot than what the IRS is getting, if they have different information, the IRS uses the two sides of the transaction to make a match. If they have a mismatch or those things don't equal up, they're going to send you a letter that says, we found an error on your tax returns, here's what tax you owe, because this is the report information that we've got. So making sure this stuff is correct and accurate is pretty important, because it impacts your income taxes. And if you do get a letter from the IRS like that, it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to get those things corrected. So we're spending a lot of time trying to make sure that this is correct. Now, last, where can you get any additional information? Okay, certainly you can rely on us to get information. I've listed our phone numbers there, of course. Charles Schwab is also available, and then the Internal Revenue Service is your other primary source. IRS Publication 550, which talks about investment income and expenses. I don't believe that the 2010 data may not yet be out, but none of this information will be in that publication at the present time, because remember, it doesn't go into effect until January 1 of 11. So it's really the end of next year is when that information will be in that publication. But you can find stuff on the IRS website should you care to. And then I guess the other source that's not listed on here is your tax preparer. They should be very familiar with this legislation and understand what's going to occur. So at this point, that really wraps up my comments and observations on what we see regarding cost basis. There's a lot of things to track. It can be complicated, and the thing that's going to complicate it is the rollout schedule. So you've got equities first, and then mutual funds, and then bonds, and I think people may have the tendency to get a little confused because some things are being reported and some things are not. But hopefully this information and the resources from ourselves and Schwab and the IRS is going to help you navigate that. So I do appreciate, again, you spending a few minutes of your time, listening to the webinar, and thank you very much for attending. I do want to answer any questions that you might have, and if you can see your toolbar, what you can do is you can just type your question into the toolbar, and that'll pop up on my screen, and I'll be able to answer any questions that you might have. So I'm going to stay on the line for a few minutes. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in there. If you don't, again, thank you for coming. So I'll take any questions at this time. Okay, I've got a question here about what Schwab will report for this year and going forward. This year, because the legislation is not in effect yet, it doesn't take place until January 2011, this year everything is the same. You'll get the same type of information. The 1099 form that you get will be the same, other than it'll have different securities on what was purchased and sold. So really the things for this year don't change. It's really what is purchased after January 1 of 2011 is when the changes begin to take effect. And so your 2011 1099 will be different. And as I mentioned before, Schwab is going to report not only the covered securities, the ones that are subject to the law, but also the uncovered securities, which are the ones that they're really reporting that to you as a courtesy. So that's what will happen this year and next. If there's not any other questions, we'll go ahead and conclude the webinar. Again, thank you for attending. We do appreciate it a lot. And certainly after you get off the call, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me or give me a call. I'd be more than happy to answer those. And if you could just take a minute to complete the survey at the conclusion of the webinar, that'll kind of give us some feedback on the content and really looking at what other kind of webinars would you like to see in the future. That would be helpful to me as well, because we want to make these as applicable to you and as valuable to you as we can, and knowing what topics that you might want to see in the future would be helpful as well. So again, I appreciate it, and thank you very much for attending, and we will talk to you soon. Have a great day.